What's up, my producer friends? I'm David with another MonsterProductions.com. This video is for aspiring beat makers and producers, and I'm going to be showing you how to make a trap beat in under 10 minutes. So in this video, I'm going to be covering just the basics of how to put together a solid sounding trap beat, but keep in mind that there are things that you can do to make your beats more complex and more professional sounding. And I do actually have a lot of content on this channel where I go into a lot more detail about some of the more specific things you can do to really make your beats more professional and take them to the next level. So with all that being said, the very first thing that we need to do here is find the right tempo. And trap beats are usually from about 130 BPM to about 170 BPM. I've been noticing a lot recently that a lot of the tracks that I've been listening to have been at like 145 BPM, 150, 155 BPM. So let's just start with 150 for the sake of this tutorial. We'll go ahead and go up here and move it to 150. Now, when it comes to the elements of a trap beat, we need some sort of melody loop or chord progression. We need a nice trappy sounding drum loop, and then we need a nice dirty sounding 808. Normally when I'm producing trap beats, I start with the melody or a chord progression, which kind of helps me give the overall vibe of the track. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to start with the drums because we can do that really quickly. Now, there are a few different ways to do this. A lot of people prefer using the channel rack, but I actually like using the playlist and dragging samples directly into the playlist. And what this does is it gives us audio to work with instead of MIDI. So let's go into our packs. I'm going to go into my Monster Samples 2020 Trap Edition. We'll go into our one shots and we'll go ahead and start with a nice kick. So we'll just grab a kick, drag it directly onto the playlist like this. We can zoom in. I can go into my channel settings and I can turn this down a little bit. Next, let's go ahead and find a snare. We'll try this one here. Now you want to make sure that your snares are on the third beat of every measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we want to make sure that it's on this third beat there. And then once again, we can go into our channel settings and we can turn the volume down a little bit. Okay, let's go ahead and grab a hi-hat. Now this time I'm actually going to drag the hi-hat directly onto the channel rack, turn down the volume a little bit, and then we'll go into the piano roll and I can just plot these out directly onto the piano roll like this. When it comes to trap beats, I actually like having my hi-hat sound fairly robotic, but one thing that you can experiment with is having a little bit of movement like this with the velocity, which creates sort of a volume thing. So some of them are a little bit louder than other ones. That can be kind of nice to add. And then we'll add our pattern 1 into our playlist just like this. Now let's find some places to put our kick. And the key with this is when it comes to trap beats, we really want a bouncy sounding beat. So we don't want something like this. Because that's more of like a house type beat. We really want something where it bounces like. Also, quick pro tip, you can select your hi-hats and zoom in and bring them back a little bit behind the beat, just so that they're not quite as quantized and don't sound quite as robotic. And that trick may or may not work depending on the vibe you're going for with your beat. Next, let's go ahead and add an 808. Now this is where things can be helpful if we already have a melody, because then we can more easily decide if we want a longer 808 sound or a shorter 808 sound, or what exactly we're going for. Now in this case, I think I'm going to go with this shorter 808 sound here. We can go back into our channel rack. And once again, we can drag it directly onto our channel rack, and then we can bring the volume down a little bit here. Let's go to a new pattern. We'll go once again into our piano rolls, and then let's try and find the sweet spot of this 808. I think I like it here. And I'm just going to plot the 808 on the same place as where the kicks were. Now you may be able to hear how that kick is not really punching through quite as nicely as it was before we added the 808, and we can make the kick punch through the mix a lot better if we just add a little bit of side chaining. So the way that I like to do that is route this to a free mixer track. I just routed the 808. Then I can go in here to slot 1. I can add a fruity balance. Then I can go back into my playlist and I can select a small area where the kick is on the playlist. Then I can go back into my mixer, back into my fruity balance, and I can right click on the volume, create automation clip, and I've created a volume automation clip which we can turn into a side chain by sort of mimicking what the kick is doing here. So now every time the kick hits, the 808 is going to cut out for a brief second with the volume there. Now in this case, you can hear the kick a lot more clearly, but it also gets rid of some of the 808 that I actually kind of like. So I'm going to do something a little bit different with this sidechain. Instead of using the fruity balance, I'm going to use the fruity parametric EQ2, and I'm going to create an automation clip just with the low end here. So right click here on band 1, create automation clip, and then we'll do the same sort of thing here, except now it's just on the low end of that. Now we just need to come up with some sort of melody or chord progression. In this case, I'm going to use an Iota Mini, which is a free plugin. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description if you're interested in getting it. But let's go ahead and grab a bell sound or a keys sound or something like that. Once again, we're going to go to a new pattern. Let's go into our Iota Mini. Now another big decision is figuring out what key we actually want our beat to be in. And if you remember from before, the 808 was on C sharp, this note here. So if you're brand new to beat making, brand new to production, you don't know any music theory, you can use FL Studio helpers to make sure that you're staying in the right key. And what we want to do is go up here to piano roll options, go down to view, go to scale highlighting, and then we need to pick the key. So let's do C sharp. Once again, we're going to go up to our piano roll options. We're going to go down to view. We're going to go down to scale highlighting, and we're going to make sure that minor natural is selected. Now this is a scale which is going to sound really dark and really good for trap beats. And now I can play any note on the light gray area. And it's going to be in the right scale. So let's mess around a little bit in the piano roll. Now the key to coming up with a nice chord progression or a nice melody is to keep it simple, but make it catchy. In this case, we're using 2 simple chords, but I like the way it sounds. It kind of creates a vibe. If we want, we can decide to add a little bit of melody on top of it. But for now, let's just go ahead and add this onto the playlist and see what it sounds like. Now we're running out of time, but if you want to make this beat sound even more professional, we can go into our Iota Mini, we can go here, we can go to route to free mixer track, and then we can start adding some effects onto it. Now, if we want to get even more creative, we can go back into our drums, we can add some hi-hat rolls, some other percussive elements, which will ultimately make our beat sound a lot more interesting. Hope you guys liked this video. If you did, be sure to hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. I do a lot of FL Studio related tutorials, so be sure to check out some other videos on the channel if you're interested. Also, if you're brand new to music production, I do offer one-on-one private lessons, which you can sign up for on my website. I'll be sure to leave a link in the description for that if you're interested, and I will see you in the next video.